Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Absyirni Gayo. I am from Accounting Faculty of Economics, State University of Jakarta. I would like to present the results of my research entitled The Factors That Affect Credit Distribution to Commercial Banks in Indonesia. I was guided by lecturers named Rida and Diah. Background. Financial institutions directly influence the development of the economy in Indonesia today. One of the ways to improve the economic development in Indonesia is through financial institution, namely banking. The role of banking in Indonesia is as a financial institution that supports to improve the community's economy both in collecting, distributing, and managing public funds. In January 2020, bank credit experienced a slowdown. Based on a report from Bank Indonesia, credit distribution throughout January was recorded at 5,514.4 trillion, or grew up 5.7% year on year. The growth of working capital loans and consumption loans naturally increased by 3% from the previous month of 2.2% year on year. The increase was influenced by the financial, real estate, and corporate service sectors. Loans on vehicle also experienced an increase. The next research questions. 1. Does third-party funds affect credit distributions? Number 2. Does non-performing loans affect credit distributions? 3. Does the capital adequacy ratio affect credit distribution? Number 4. Does efficiency of both affect credit distributions? 5. Does net interest margin affect credit distribution? Next is a research purposes. 1. For knowing influence on party thirds to distribution credit. For knowing influence non-performing loans to credit distributions. 3. For knowing influence capital adequacy ratio to credit distribution. 4. For knowing influence efficiency or both to credit distribution. Number 5, for knowing influence net interest margin to credit distribution. Next, benefit of research. 1. Theoretical benefits can show the influence of third-party funds, non-performing loans, capital adequacy ratio, efficiency or BOPO, and net interest margin on credit distribution. Number 2, practical benefits are for Bank Indonesia and banking as a regulator and for creditors. Next, the literature review. Theory management liquidity. First theory is commercial loan theory as a reduced bank risks in non-performing loans. Next, stability theory. Bank can transfer their assets to other people or entities with a predictable value. The next, anticipated income theory. Bank can provide credit both short-term and long-term, while still considering non-performing loans. The next, the liability management theory. Bank efforts to provide liquidity in the form of liabilities. Bank. The definition bank is a business entity that collects funds from the public in the form of savings and allocated them to the public in the form of credit and or other form in order to raise the standard of living of the people at large. The type of bank are commercial banks and rural banks. The functions bank are fundraiser, funds distributor, bank service. Credit definitions. Provision of money or equivalent claims based on agreement or loan agreement between the bank and another party that requires the borrower to repay the debt after a certain period of time with interest. The element of credit are trust agreement to time, risk, and remuneration. The function of credit are credit can increase the usability of money. Credit can increase the circulation and traffic money, usability of goods, and circulation of goods as a tool of economic stability. The first variable is credit distributions. The definition of credit distribution is a number of funds provided by the bank to the community with the aim that the community can improve their standard of living. The measurements of credit distribution is a total credit distributed. And the next variable is the third-party funds. The definitions are unrestricted savings or investment funds issued by customers to Sharia banks and or Sharia business unit based on wadiah or mudharabah contracts that do not conflict with Sharia principles in the form of demand deposits, certificates of deposits, saving, and or other equivalent funds. The measurements of third-party funds is a current account plus savings plus time deposits, or third-party funds is third-party funds per 2 total liabilities times 100%. The next variable is non-performing loans. The definition non-performing loan is shows the collectability of a bank in collecting credit issued by the bank until it is paid off. NPL is the percentage of non-performing loans with the criteria of substandard, the full and loss to the total loans issued by bank. The measurements of non-performing loans is non-current credit to total credit times 100%. Capital adequacy ratio. The definitions. CAR is a ratio that shows how large the total assets in a bank that contain risk they will participate to be financed from own capital in addition to obtaining funds from sources outside the bank. The measurement of capital adequacy ratio is capital to risk-weighted assets times 100%. The next variable is BOPO. The definition, operating expense to operating income, is a ratio that shows the level of efficiency of the bank in carrying out its operational activities. The measurements of BOPO is operating expense to operating income times 100%. The next variable is net interest margin. Net interest margin is a comparison used to measure the level of probability, namely the level of effectiveness in the bank between net interest income compared to the average earning assets, which is also the difference between deposit interest and loan interest. The measurements, the net interest margin is a net interest income to average earning assets times 100%. These are previous research. And the hypotheses in this research are: hypothesis 1, third-party fund has a positive effect on credit distributions. Hypothesis 2, non-performing loans has a negative effect on credit distributions. Hypothesis 3, capital adequacy ratio has a positive effect on credit distributions. Hypothesis 4, efficiency or BOPO has a negative effect on credit distributions. Hypothesis 5, net interest margin has a positive effect on credit distribution. The next is research methodology. Unit of analysis in this research that is company banking which has registered in stock effect Indonesia. The populations used in this study are commercial banks that have gone public in Indonesia in the period 2017 until 2020. In the study, there were 42 banking companies and used sampling. The next is variable operations. Variable first is credit distributions, is amount of credit distributions. Third-party funds is taken from annual report third-party funds banking. Non-performing loan is taken from annual report NPL banking. Capital adequacy ratio taken from annual reports banking. BOPO taken from annual report banking. The NIM taken from annual report NIM banking. The analytical technique. The first is a statistic descriptive test. The next is panel data regression analysis. There are common effect, fixed effect, random effect. The next is classic assumption test. There are anomality tests, multicollinearity tests, autocorrelation tests, heteroscedasticity tests. The next is hypothesis testing. There are t-tests, f-tests, coefficient of determination analysis. The next is research results and discussions. Analysis statistic descriptive. Descriptive statistical analysis can provide information and a description of research data. The study uses descriptive statistical analysis, which includes the average or mean, maximum, minimum, and standard deviation value. The result of the descriptive statistical analysis are presented in the following table. First, credit distributions. The minimum value as Bank Diego in 2019. For maximum value is a Bank Mandiri in 2019. For third-party fund variable, the minimum value is Bank Amar Indonesia in 2017. For maximum value is Bank Rakyat Indonesia in 2020. The next variable is a non-performing loan. The minimum value is Bank Jago and Bank Capital Indonesia in 2020. For the maximum value is Bank Neo Commerce in 2018. The next variable is capital adequacy ratio. For minimum value is Bank Pembangunan Daerah Banten in 2019. For the maximum value is Bank Jago in 2019. For variable BOPO, the minimum value is a Bank Business International in 2020. For the maximum value is Bank Jago in 2020. For the name variable, the minimum value is a Bank J Trust Indonesia in 2020, and for maximum value is a Bank Amar Indonesia in 2019. The next is a panel data regression analysis model selections. The first is a chow test, is a test to choose the best model between the common effect and fixed effect models. The results of the chow test are shown in the table as follows. Based on the test results in the table, it can be seen that the probability value of the chi-square cross-section is 0.000. This value is less than 0.05 or 5%. This result does not accept hypothesis null, which means that the selected model is a fixed effect model. The Hausman test is a follow-up test if the result of the chow test show the selected fixed effect model. The Hausman test was conducted to determine the most appropriate model between the fixed effect model and the random effect model. Here are the results of the Hausman test. The chi-square, the statistic value contained in the table, is 0.000. If the P statistic is less than 5%, then the fixed effect model is selected based on the result of the chow test and Hausman test. It is not necessary to carry out further tests, and the model chosen in this research is the fixed effect model. And the next is a classic assumption test. The first test is a normality test. The normality test aims to test whether the residual variable in the regressions are normally distributed or not. The following are the results of the normality test in this study. From the results of the normality test above, the probability value is 0.519992, which means it exceeds the 0.05 significant levels, or 5%. These results indicate that the residual data in the regressions are normally distributed. Next test is a multicollinearity test. This was conducted to determine whether or not there was a linear relationship between the independent variables. The following results of the multicollinearity test in the study are presented in the table. The results of the multicollinearity test show that there is no relationship between the independent variables because the VIF value is not more than 10.0. The next test is heteroscedasticity test. To test the inequality of variance in the residuals from one observation to another, a heteroscedasticity test is needed. The study used the Buch-Fagan-Godfrey test to detect heteroscedasticity. If the value of probability chi-square is more than 5%, then there is no heteroscedasticity problem. The following are the results of the Bridge-Fagan-Godfrey test in this study. From the result of the Bridge-Fagan-Godfrey test presented in the table, it can be concluded that there is no heteroscedasticity problem because of the probability value chi-square above 5%. The next test is autocorrelation test. The autocorrelation test was carried out with the aim of testing a linear regression mode for the correlation between confounding errors in the T-min1 period. The autocorrelation test in this study is the Durbin-Watson test. The following results of the autocorrelation test are presented in the table. The next is panel data regression analysis. After selecting the phase effect model, the following are the results of panel data regression analysis in this study. The panel data regression equation are as follows. Credit distribution is 4,535103 plus 0.723645. Third-party funds mean 0.002803 NPL mean 0.003400 capital adequacy ratio plus 0.00034 for BOPO plus 0.033325 net interest margin plus E. The next is hypothesis testing. T-test. The purpose of the statistical t-test is to find out how far one independent variable has an effect on the independent variable by assuming the other variables are constant. In this test, a significance value of 5% is used. If the probability less than 0.05, it means that the independent variable has an effect on the dependent variables. T-test results. Hypothesis 1. The significance level of the third-party fund variable is less than the 5% significant level, which means that there is a significant influence between third-party funds and banking credit distribution, which is hypothesis 1 is accepted. Hypothesis 2. Furthermore, the NPL variable has a significant level more than 5%. This illustrates that there is no significant effect resulting from the relationship of non-performing loans with a total credit distribution, which is hypothesis 2 is not accepted. Hypothesis 3, CAR variable has a significant level more than 5%. This illustrates that there is no significant effect resulting from the relationship between the capital adequacy ratio and total credit distributions, which means hypothesis 3 is not accepted. And hypothesis 4, the BOPO variable has a significant level more than 5%. This illustrates that there is no significant effect resulting from the relationship between operating expense and operating income with a total credit distribution, which means hypothesis 4 is not accepted. The next hypothesis 5. Furthermore, the NIM variable has a significant level less than 5%. This illustrated that there is a significant effect resulting from the relationship between net interest margin and total credit distributions, which is hypothesis 5 is accepted. And the next test is F-test. The F-test or model feasibility test was conducted to measure the accuracy of the sample regression function in estimated the actual value statistically. In the following table, the result of the probability value F statistic of less than 5%. It can be said that the data in the study deserve to be studied. And the next test is a coefficient of determination test. The purpose of testing the coefficient of determination is to see how much the model's ability to explain the variation of the dependent variable is. As stated in the following table, the adjusted R-square value is 0.997825. This value indicated that the independent variable of third-party funds, non-performing loan, capital adequacy ratio, BOPO, and net interest margin are able to explain banking credit distribution of 99.84%. The next is a discussion. The first, effect of third-party funds on credit distribution. The study showed that third-party funds have a positive effect on bank lending. This shows that banking companies that have more third-party funds will also be higher in providing loans or channeling credit to the public. Deposits collected by the bank in the form of savings, demand deposits, and time deposits are one of the largest sources of banking funds obtained from the public, which will later be redistributed in the form of credit by banks. Banking companies that have a lot of third-party funds or customer deposits are considered to have higher opportunities, and it will be easier to increase the total loans or credit that will be provided by banks to the public. These results are in line with research conducted by Sandra, Shukriya, and Ambrosi Sulistioroni. The next effect of non-performing loans on credit distributions. The results of this study indicate that non-performing loans have no significant effect on credit distribution. The result of the study explain that the value of the NPL of bank has no impact on the increase and decrease in lending to the company. This insignificant influence can be interpreted that the high value of non-performing loans is still within reasonable limits, does not exceed the specific limit, and is able to be controlled by the bank, so that the increase in the value of non-performing loans does not significantly affect the distribution of credit extended by banking companies. The results of this study are in line with research conducted by Ambrosi, Haryanto, and Widyarti. The next, effect of capital adequacy ratio on distribution credit. Further results for the study also say that the capital adequacy ratio has no effect on lending. So it can be said that the CAR ratio of a bank has no impact and has no effect on the increase or decrease in the value of bank lending. Capital adequacy ratio does not have a significant effect on lending provided by banks because CAR is a capital ratio that shows the ability of a bank to provide funds for business development purposes and cover the risks of loss of funds caused by bank operational activities. The reasons that the CAR ratio does not affect lending can be said that banks prefer to strengthen their capital structure rather than allocate it to lending. The results of this study are in line with research conducted by Prativi, Adnan, and Ambrosi and Sulistioroni. The effect of BOPO on distributions credit. The next result of this research also says that the ratio of operating expense to operating income has no effect on lending. The results of this study prove that the increase in the ratio of operating expense to operating income has not been able to suppress the amount of credit extended by banks. Bank efficiency that generates profits for parties is not directly allocated by banks to increase the amount of credit extended to the public. The bank's policy may prefer to use the profits that have been obtained to finance other bank activities, so that it does not have a significant effect on lending. This study in line with the results of other studies conducted by Kuncahyono and Purnamasari. And last is an effect of net interest margin on distributions credit. This study shows that net interest margin has a positive effect on bank credit distribution. This shows that banking companies that have more interest income on productive assets managed by bank will also be higher in providing loans or channeling credit to the public. NIM has an effect on credit distribution because the net interest income obtained can be repaid in the form of lending. Banking companies that have more interest income than productive assets are considered to have higher opportunities, and it will be easier to increase the total loans credit that will be provided by banks to the public. These results are in line with research conducted by Haryanto and Widyarti. Next is conclusions and suggestions. The study was conducted to examine the effect of third-party funds, improvement loans, capital adequacy ratio, BOPO, and net interest margin on credit distribution. The data used in the study is secondary data derived from annual reports of banking companies listed on the Indonesian Stock Exchange in 2017 until 2020 with a total of 168 observations. The first, third-party fund has a positive and significant effect on credit distribution. 2. Non-performing loan has no significant effect on credit distribution. 3. Capital adequacy ratio has no significant effect on credit distribution. 4. BOPO has no significant effect on credit distribution. 5. Net interest margin has a positive and significant effect on credit distribution. Conclusion and suggestion, and the next is suggestions. First, the populations and sample in the study were limited to banking companies listed on the Indonesian Stock Exchange. In future research, it's hoped that it can add or expand research in other sector companies. The study used only 4 years of observations from 2017 until 2020. So for further research, it's hoped that researchers can add years of observation to achieve consistency of the variable used. 3. There are still many variables from the annual reports of banking companies that have not been used in the study. It's hoped that further research can add other variables that can affect banking credit distributions. Thank you for attention. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.